Tonight, on day 25 of the war in Iran, the conflict is entering a new and far more dangerous phase. In just the past 24 hours, Iran has launched a fresh wave of missile attacks targeting the Zionist entity. As Zionist and U.S. strikes continue deep inside Iranian territory. And now Washington is preparing to deploy thousands of additional troops to the region, signaling growing fears of a wider escalation. But beyond the battlefield, the picture becomes far more complicated. U.S. President Donald Trump says very good and productive talks with Iran were underway, and has even postponed strikes on Iranian energy infrastructure, hinting at a possible diplomatic opening. Yet Tehran is denying that any negotiations exist. At the same time, countries like Pakistan, Turkey, and Egypt are stepping in to mediate, with Islamabad emerging as a potential venue for negotiations. This follows a sharp U.S. ultimatum to Iran, quickly followed by a sudden pause, raising a critical question. Meanwhile, international calls for de-escalation are growing louder amid raising fears of regional spillover. And then there's the economic front already reacting. Oil prices have surged back above $100 per barrel as markets brace for prolonged disruption and instability in global energy supply. Which brings us to the central question: who is really in control and who holds the leverage if talks ever begin? We answer this question and many more in just a moment. And to begin our discussion, I'm pleased to welcome our panel of guests. Here with us tonight is Mr. Sessi. Tonight is in the studio. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for the invite and happy to be here.
Thank you very much. You are a geopolitical expert and economic financial expert as well. Hossein Barkan is also here with us in the studio, journalist at Al24 News. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Mariam. Always a pleasure joining you in the studio.
Thank you very much. And also joining us from Washington is Mr. Abdurrahmi Bissaha, economic expert.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. We are going to start talking about peace talks. Perhaps with you, Mr. Sessi. Pakistan has offered to host peace talks while China and Oman are pushing for diplomatic efforts. Oman's foreign minister said something today. Badr al-Busaidi said, whatever your view of Iran, the war is not their making. They did not start a war. And at the same time, Qatar's emir is thanking Erdogan for de-escalation efforts. Are we seeing the emergence of a non-Western mediation track? Could that become more effective than the traditional US-led policy at this stage?
Indeed, when you look back at the beginning of the negotiation, when it was Oman, when they were negotiating, Iran gets back, stabbed in the back. So I am so pleased that now we are turning around and going to Pakistan, going to Egypt, and hopefully is going to de-escalate this kind of madness that is taking place. I have difficulties to understand. In one hand, Trump is saying that he did meet or we did have contact with the Iranian authority. And on the other hand, Iran is saying absolutely not. And then come Pakistan, Turkey, and Egypt. So it's very difficult for me to see where we are going. But one thing, I'm still optimistic, and I hope that this madness will stop because there's no winner.
There is no winner in this war, Hossein.
Yeah, so basically, as just the professor was talking about, it's important at this stage of the war to start seeing people or other states suggesting or trying to mediate, because there are stages in the war. We started with the first one, which is the shock, and then every player started playing all their cards, trying to adapt to the situation. But at a certain point, especially now with what's going on in the Hormuz Strait, and everybody in the world is involved, economically speaking. At this stage, I think it's important for the regional players, Turkey, Oman, and other people, other states in the region, to ask for mediation. And whether this mediation is going to work or not, we are optimistic. Hopefully, it's going to work for the best of the region. But the most important here, Mariam, or probably what is going on currently, is the contradiction between the statements of the United States and the statements of Iran, because even though these countries are offering mediation, and even though the United States also is talking about peace talks, but on the other hand, we're seeing Iranian officials denying the fact that there are any peace talks, and they are committed to achieving their goals, and which is very confusing, especially for us as journalists, because we get our information mainly from the statements of the parties involved. The United States is saying there are peace talks. The Iranians are saying there are no peace talks, especially that this is coming after the ultimatum of the 48 hours that the United States has given to Iran. And as the 48 hours were going to conclude, start hearing of peace talks, and there are 5 days, more 5 days. So it's so confusing for us journalists to, distinguish between what is real and what is not real, what is accurate and what is not accurate. And it's part of, the information war, because each one of them, it's like this ambiguity that we're witnessing right now. It's part of the war. We should deal with it. And we're going to see in the next few days what is going to happen, Mariam.
Maybe, Mr. Bisaha, we have seen when Trump said that there are peace talks with Iran. We've seen yesterday that the prices of oil went down, and today they went up again. How does his statements and how does all the statements we listen to affect the markets?
Actually, if on the geostrategical side we lack visibility, on the economic side we see it. Let's step back and take a strategic view of this issue on the economic side. First of all, let's remember that this oil shock, which is following a geostrategical shock, is taking place in the context of the past pandemic, which really created havoc on the economy, on the world economy. It did a lot of structural damages, and we inherited one of the biggest inflation spike compared to the 70s. And actually the disinflation process from the pandemic inflation is still ongoing, okay? And then we also have major sets of structural challenges, like the redesign of the supply chain, like on the macroeconomic side, countries have less fiscal room for maneuver. And then we have also the rebuilding of supply chains. We have the I would say climate change, and so on. This is the strategic view of the economic conflict, which is born out of this geopolitical issue. Now, what the world is still trying to regain control out of the pandemic. So it's a fragile world on the fiscal side, on the economic side, and then you have this new oil shock, which is a major supply shock. If you look back at the 1970s, we had 7 shocks, 5 supply shocks. 1973, we had the 79-80 at the Iran war with Iraq. 1991, the invasion of Kuwait. We had 2022, which was the war in Ukraine, and today's shock. Now, to give you a comparison of the depth of this shock, at this point, because of the closure of points, because of the damage to infrastructure, and we have lost 10 million barrels of oil a day. And if you look at the 1973 and all the other oil shocks, we never lost more than 4 million. So we are in a market which is extremely sensible to the loss of oil. This is a very serious supply shock. And this is going to guide, I think, the belligerent to some kind of coming back to senses. Now, what is the impact? So we have today a geostrategic shock which has translated into a major supply shock. And this supply shock, of course, is creating a lot of damage to the economy through inflation, through the exchange rate depreciation, through the monetary policy, through upheaval in financial market, and of course, the price of oil, as you mentioned, which is really trying to react to the political messages. At this point, what we can add is if the oil is around $100 a barrel, this is on the spot. However, on the futures market, means delivery to in the next 6 months, the price of oil is about $80, which means financial markets are betting on some kind of return to normalcy. But even if we return to normalcy, it will still take some time before we have a return to the $60 a barrel that we had before the war. So this is the picture that we have today, and I'm sure this is going to guide the process of negotiation, because this war cannot go on forever. If it does not affect the United States because it's a net exporter, however, the U.S. on one side...
We will perhaps get a comment by Mr. Sessi on the oil prices.
Well, I would like to make a point here regarding the so-called crisis of oil. United States, they don't have a problem of resourcing in oil, since they export more than they import. On the other side, as Dr. Mesaha was saying, now it's not anymore political war, getting to the trade war, and this is very, very critical. The oil is one thing, the application of the sourcing is another. We're talking about the Detroit of Hormuz. We're talking about, all the avenue and all the causality of these high prices. The insurance, for example, the price of all the goods, you have maybe 20 to 25% is the price of taking the resourcing to make it to the manufacturing. And as Dr. Busa was saying, it's not something that you can sustain for a long time. This war is costing to America $2 billion a day at the last number, without counting the armament, the deployment of the naval war, the troops coming. All this is paying by the United States of America. Israel doesn't do anything. For what? For an aggression. They aggress Iran. Iran since, I will say it again, I'm sorry, 1953, 1952, Mossadegh, 1974, 2008, 2026. How we are going to believe what they are saying? And they are disturbing the chain of supply. They are disturbing, and this, as the doctor said, inflation is coming. So I think the oil is one thing, but you have to see the repercussion in the global trade. And you cannot have political stability if you don't have an economic stability. And Dr. Bessaha maybe can go on that one with the World Bank, and I read the last report if you want to say a word about it.
So, Mr. Bessaha, if diplomacy is uncertain, the pressure is clearly shifting elsewhere, and that brings us to the energy front again, where the consequences are already felt globally. We were saying that oil prices are rising again, and Iran is now reportedly imposing $2 million per ship, according to some reports, to pass through the Strait of Hormuz, while Qatar Energy has declared force majeure on LNG contracts with multiple countries, and even the Philippines has declared a national energy emergency. So can we call this, at this point, in this very specific phase, the day, at the 25th day of the war, that it is becoming an economic warfare through energy control?
It is a big economic issue because except for the United States, which is a net exporter of oil, all the other countries depend on the oil coming from the Strait of Hormuz, from the Middle East. And the question today is, what is the price that the world economy, which is already weak, as I said, at the exit of the pandemic, is going to absorb? $100 the world economy can absorb it with some damage. If it keeps going, if there is no peace in sight, no diplomacy in sight working to come out of this really very damaging situation, we can easily reach 150, and at that time we will have a deep recession. If still we don't have any kind of peace prospect, if we reach $200, it has never been reached, by the way. The only time where the barrel reached 147 was in 2008, when there was a significant demand from China. So at this point in time, the problem is to what extent the economy can absorb higher and higher oil prices. Everybody knows it's impossible. We cannot go on like that. As I said, if the United States is a net exporter, however, the United States, the current president has to answer, first of all, a political issue, because as of today, the oil price at the pump is $4, which means 48% increase compared to the day before the war. Second, the financial market are really pricing, for the time being, are pricing a return to peace in the next few weeks. But we don't know if there is no peace in sight, if it can do that. And the damage to the world economy will be irreparable. So if there is no visibility on the geostrategic side, there is a clean visibility on the economic side, and economics always bring people to the negotiating table. So whether it's for Iran or the United States or any other belligerent in the Middle East.
Mr. Sisi, with tensions escalating further, we've seen some reports confirming that a UK nuclear-powered submarine was deployed to the Arabian Sea. So can we say that the Hormuz, or the Strait of Hormuz, is a turning point in the central pressure point in the global economy?
Absolutely. I think this is the only card economically that Iran possesses. And they know that they have a strategic position and also monopolistic strategy. Nothing can be done if they don't allow it. And this is why Trump can say that they kill everything, they don't have any leader. So no, it's not true. You know that the umbilical cordon of the economy is the Strait of Hormuz. Now they can bring the troops. They are not going to put them on the boots because it's going to be too bloody. Even you have 1,000 naval over there. Petrol. And what you are going to do with them if you don't open it. And also I would like to add that contrary to all what he said, they still navigate through it, except the one who are the US
allies.
And, yes, and it's free, contrary to Panama Canal, etc. So I understand that the Strait of Hormuz is the only card of the Iranian for today, and America is aware of it, and this is why he didn't attack it. And all this narrative that they want to control, they are not controlling it anymore. And more, as you said, as Osam said, and Dr. Besaha said, the map is changing and is not in favor of America, is not in the favor of Europe. They have to come to an end, they have to come to commitment, and I think it will come soon. They cannot go further.
They cannot go further?
No, they can't. No.
Hussam, the narrative, they're not controlling it anymore?
So basically, as the professor was talking about, we don't really see where things are going because, when we talk about these wars at the very beginning, as analysts are talking, we need to know what are exactly the goals of this war, like where are we exactly heading? And we talked about this multiple times, the statements mentioned by the United States, the Trump administration and by Israel, is that they wanted, the fall of the regime, they wanted to destroy their military capabilities, and until now, after like 4 weeks of the war, until now we're not seeing any of these happening, especially that the most important goal was, changing the regime, that they were calling it a terrorist regime, they were talking about Ayatollah, the whole narrative, currently we're not seeing any of this happening. And this is why people are questioning the whole situation, like where are we exactly now, especially Americans. And we talked before about the division inside the Trump administration with the resignation of Joe Kent, and as I said for the very first time, one official from the administration is literally attacking the narrative that Trump is still defending until now. So of course, it is a narrative warfare, and we could see that so far we're seeing Iran really doing a great job in terms of controlling the narrative, because Donald Trump is saying that we're winning, we're overwhelmingly destroying Iran, and Iran is begging us for diplomacy, Iran is begging for a deal. Whereas, like, can you imagine, like, the statement of Donald Trump talking about peace talks, like 2 minutes after this, like literally 2 minutes, we see the statements of Iran directly, categorically denying that there were no peace talks, there were no negotiations. And it's like, here we're talking about this narrative that it is embarrassing for the Trump administration to talk about these kind of talks and directly being denied by Iran. And a lot of analysts and a lot of political analysts and reporters are talking about this, that are there really peace talks, especially with the deployment of military, because I think we're going to talk about this in the next few minutes. Many, I know I'm going directly to
segments dedicated to that.
Exactly. So yeah, you can
maybe
continue.
Getting back to peace talks. We've seen Trump saying that they talked with Iran, that there's progress. Right afterwards, Iran denies it, and then we see Trump and see reports that they're going to deploy more troops.
Well, I have to say, unfortunately, that whatever Trump said, I don't believe him. He's going to say something today and tomorrow is going to change. I give you 48 hours. All of a sudden it becomes 5 days. What is going to be next? He's an emperor without claws. He lost his credibility. Now we have also, and we are not talking, but I would like to talk about that. It was almost an accord was going to be done between Iran and the United States under Obama. And here comes Trump, and he listened to the muse of Israel, and here we are. Israel is the one who pushed America to do this aggression. And now Trump has too much to chew, and he cannot find the way. They don't, as Hussein was saying, is no strategy. One day it was because of the nuclear power. For 40 years, Mr. Netanyahu, each and every time he go to the UN, and he showed some picture of the bomb, etc., to say what, in 2 weeks they are going to have the nuclear bomb. This since 40 years. Why? We don't have any border with Iran. Even though America, why you have to attack Iran? That's the thing. And Israel said that is an existential war. Is not. It's a war of choice. And this is very, very, very damaging. They choose the war versus diplomacy. Iran was already on a boycott for 7 years. You have the GCC country that were financing the war through Mr. Saddam Hussein. They didn't succeed. Do you think they are going to succeed? No, Hassan was just illustrating. The narrative now is Iran that is controlling it. No country can win a war only with the air bomb. It's very easy to go 10,000 feet away and bombard. But what happened? Iran is resilient. Iran was prepared for 40 years. Now, in terms of economics, who is suffering? It's not Iran. They are used to it. It's Europa. It's Asia. Look at, for example, to talk about a little bit diversification of Russia. India. India goes to Russia.
To Russia.
When Trump said no, it cannot do it, they tell him no, sorry, we have to do it. Now you have the BRICS, which can maybe Dr. Basaha can talk to the BRICS. They don't want again and again the sacrosanct dollar. Why? Because the market has been disturbed, the China has been disturbed, and they don't believe in the supremacy, quote unquote, of the dollars. And I think the outcome of it, I will reiterate what I said, they cannot go further. Maybe I'm wrong, but I say maybe 3-4 weeks maximum. And then they are going to come to negotiate. And it's no winner, but it's going to be some safe face saving. And I hope it will happen.
Mr. Basaha, perhaps we're speaking about the repercussions of this war on many countries. In your opinion and according to your expertise, who are the countries and the regions that are most affected by this ongoing war?
I mean, let's step back from the noise and what we call the information war. It's a waste of time. Let's focus on the central issue today. The situation as it is in the Strait of Hormuz is unsustainable for everyone. It's unsustainable for Iran. It cannot hold the strait forever. It's unsustainable for the United States. Although the United States is a net exporter of energy, still they have to answer to the market and the population. It's unsustainable for China, it's unsustainable for India, it's unsustainable for Asia because they get supplied from the Middle East. Therefore, the economic situation is getting degraded day after day. For the time being, we have not reached the point where the price cannot be absorbed without danger. However, this is what's going to lead the discussions, and usually discussions like that do not take place in the public. They take place through intermediary, they take place underground, so there are some discussion because it's in the interest of no one, whether it's the belligerent or the GCC countries or the other superpower in the country. So economics is going to drive, the hard facts of economics is going to drive to negotiation. Of course, people are going to say, we are not negotiating. Nobody wants to admit that they negotiate, but there are negotiations on the way to end this disaster. Otherwise, if we lose the control of the process, the economic process, we are heading into a depression, and no one can afford to have a depression, whatever in this world.
So if it continues for a couple of weeks, we are risking recession?
Of course we are risking recession because you are here, you went from $60 a barrel to 100. You can imagine all the implication on the inflation. Inflation which has not been, of course, won after this outbreak of inflation when the world economy opened in 2021. The central bank have not yet gained control over the inflation. And today, the fact that we lost 10 million barrels of oil and 5 million cubic meters of gas is, of course, impacting the prices because and these are just the first effect of inflation, okay? And then you have the second effect, they propagate through transportation, logistics, and then it propagates through the third channel, revenues, income. So you have you have some kind of a chain of inflation which is taking place right now. In respect to that, what do you have? Central banks are already reacting. First of all, they are pausing on the decline in interest rate. Today, they are even maintaining them constant, which means you have a second reaction. Monetary policy is becoming a little bit tighter. Of course, exchange rates are going also to depreciate. So nobody is going to win economically from this war. It is time to stop it. And hopefully we're not going to reach the $150. You can realize that every time there is a little statement saying that we are talking or we have done that, you have the prices which are retreating. That means everybody is cautious. Nobody wants to go beyond the red line of reaching 150 again, and let alone $200. So this will give you a picture of where we could head. So let's forget the noise of Trump said that, X said that. This is not strategy. Strategy is the situation of the world economy, which is really degrading today, not to the point of being in a state of recession, but we can head there very quickly if there is no reason in terms of negotiating to remove the stalemate and move on. So, and even when after that we move on, it will take us days and days and months because plants, oil, gas plants have been closed and it takes about 2-3 months to reopen them. Infrastructure has been damaged, so it will take time to repair them. So the world, even if there is something going on, we can still avoid a catastrophe.
Mm-hmm. So can we still avoid a catastrophe?
Yeah, so Mariam, I think it's important for, that the state is a rational player And as much as we're seeing a lot of chaos going on currently in this war, every state is trying to reach or maximize its benefits from this war. So even though we're seeing chaos, we're seeing war, we're seeing players attacking each other, seeing Israel and the United States attacking Iran and Iran retaliating. At the end of the day, each one of these players is trying to reach certain goals. You got it, Maria? Mm-hmm. So here we can answer this question going back to how the United States is deploying military while talking about diplomacy. And it's very, very important, especially after the 48 hours ultimatum that Donald Trump wanted to give to Iran. If they did not open the Strait of Hormuz, he said that he threatened that he's going to attack the vital infrastructure of Iran. And directly Iranians, they said, if you do so, first of all, they said that the Strait of Hormuz is not closed, which is a reality. So how are you asking us to open a strait that is literally open? And they argued that, and the professor talked about this, that it's the assurance companies that are not covering the assurance for these ships. And the ships are literally refusing to pass through the Strait of Hormuz because the assurance companies, they cannot afford this in the moment because there's the risk of being attacked. So literally there's this, exchange of argument between Iran and the United States. So it was very hard for the United States to actually, apply this 48 hours threat, because even Iran threatens to attack all the infrastructure in the Gulf states and also in Israel. So basically, there are multiple analysts who talked about the fact that this is just an exit that Donald Trump and the Trump administration used in order to, it's an exit strategy from the threat, because the personality of Donald Trump, that after 48 hours, if he didn't apply what he was talking about, it's very bad for his image.
Credibility as well.
Exactly. So it's some kind of, and I think the professor agreed with me that it's some kind of a strategy that they are using. So they said, okay, we are having peace. Suddenly, we are having peace talks, and we're gonna reach an agreement in probably 5 days, or hopefully we're gonna reach in 5 days. And then at the same time, we're seeing that the United States is deploying more military in Iran, which is very contradictory to the statement. So here we're saying that the statements are saying there are peace talks, but at the same time in the field, we're seeing more deployments of military. And you know that when it comes to politics, actions speak louder than words. So you make a statement and then you attack. And I think that the Iranians already learned from this, because they were literally in negotiation, diplomacy, and they're saying that we are reaching a deal, there is a breakthrough, and the next day they attack them. It happened twice, not only once. Yes. So even if there were peace talks, I think that Iranians already learned the lesson. And even if the United States is stating that there's diplomacy, there's peace talks, but at the same time they're noticing that there are military deployment on the field. So I don't think that they're going to be trusting the peace talks, or I don't think that these peace talks are credible. Even if there are probably some peace talks happening, especially we've seen that Pakistan is trying to mediate. We have Turkey, we have Egypt. Oman, who literally was the mediator before. So we're seeing all of these players in the region trying to play the role of the mediator. But at the end of the day, I think that what is going on currently, what we're seeing on the field, is that there are still attacks. Israel is still attacking Iran, and Iran is still retaliating, and the war is still continuing. And of course, as the professor said, hopefully there's going to be some kind of peace talks. Because everybody is being affected by what's going on currently, Maria.
Maybe speaking about diplomacy and peace talks, when we look at all the statements we've talked about, we've got also Germany's president calling the war unnecessary, a disastrous mistake, and Francis Macron urging Iran to engage in good faith, to engage in negotiations. So are we witnessing a shift in diplomatic legitimacy away from Washington? We're seeing now other players, we talked about this earlier, trying to mediate, but that's not Washington, that is the other parties.
Absolutely, and as Hussein was saying, now is in Pakistan. You have the Pakistan, they have the Turkish, they have the Egyptian. Why they change the center of negotiation through a neutral, I should say, pays like Pakistan. And also Pakistan is a message there. Pakistan have the deterrent. They have the nuclear power. Pakistan is a Muslim country and is a message there. Few months back, Pakistan was saying to the world when they were attacking, not militarily, but after June, they say Pakistan said to the world, Iran doesn't need to do the nuclear bomb. You can provide it to them. And think today with the little thinking, I should say, that, you know, geopolitics, the message is there. And I think Trump is getting it, despite all his craziness. Now, the shifting of the diplomatic policy, I am not that optimistic. If you go to the UN, the Security Council, they have France, they have England, they have the state. And what I'm just naming is the country that they were fighting each other for all the last 200 years. And when it comes to talk to peace, and when it comes to talk to make this thing better, look what happened to the genocide in Gaza. Who did the veto? America, 4 times. It was a genocide. Now for Ukraine, we run to the ICC, we run to the UN to condemn Russia. Why you don't do the same against Israel, that is making a genocide in Beirut? Why you don't do the same when we have the the blockade in Cuba? How can I believe in this kind of diplomacy? Is it, I'm going to shock the world, is it a new crusade that they are doing? Should we look at this and saying nothing? No, we have to denounce it. And don't be afraid that now America is defending not only not the GCC that give them billion for all the money, they are just defending themselves. And as the Ministry of War in America said, we are Christian. They are not. And when you have this kind of thing, what do you expect? What you are going to think after that? Economically, we can talk about economics. We know that we are suffering. But one way or another is going to balance. This is the l'offre et la demande. We can talk about that if you want. But how we are going to believe the diplomacy when you have this? Before it was 2 blocks, la guerre froide between America and USSR. Now you have a new intervenant, China. China is not going to stay on the side and look that you are killing their source of economy. They are not going to accept that. They look at Japan and say, we are Japan. If you go to war, you know that constitutionally Japan cannot do war. They are going to go where? They are going to go to Taiwan. And if they said anything, say, you went to Venezuela to defend democracy, and then you are dealing with the vice president that, you know, it was the vice president of the guy that you are accused of dictatorship and murderer. Where is the strategy of the... Don't be afraid. L'Occident want to destruct that part of the world. And I'm saying it again, they want to destruct it. They want to take all the riches, and then you are again to be like a beautiful book written by Etienne de la Boétie, which is La soumission à la servitude. But sorry, doesn't do it anymore. I am from Algeria. I fight for 132 years against the 4th power of the world at that time. We win, not militarily, politically, on the world. And I think we have to come back to that. They cannot always come, bomb, take all our matières premières and all our wealth to nourish their craziness. Why? Why should you accept that? We have to wake up and smell the coffee. But you have to send the message. And Iran is doing it. I'm not defending the dictatorship of Iran or the democracy of Iran. I'm defending the human right, the decent human. Why, for God's sake, you go and bombard them day and night, and you are negotiating, and you are saying, they are negotiating, but in the same time you go there to save Iranian carpet bombing? Where are we going? I'm sorry.
Maybe we should get back to Mr. Besaha and perhaps speak about the energy markets. Everybody's eyes are on the energy markets across the world. We're seeing that the prices of oil is rising. Maybe we want to ask you if there are strategic petroleum reserves enough to sustain and stabilize the markets, and also for how long, Mr. Bissaha, for how long can the world endure this war?
I mean, if the price is still at 100, it's the result of some statements about the possibilities of discussion. And these discussions are taking place, of course. Second, the release of strategic reserves are a short-term gimmick. Third, some spot and some rerouting through other oil pipelines are a short-term fix. The only fix that will save the world economy, and again, economics is at the end of the day the guiding principle of this war is affecting everyone. Is affecting Iran, is affecting the United States different ways, is affecting the Gulf, is affecting Asia, because you have a choke point in the most strategic place in the world in terms of energy, fossil energy. So discussions, I'm sure, will now. Diplomacy takes time to get in place, but I'm sure it's going to become more and more active in order to stop a conflict that is benefiting no one. No one in the world is going to benefit from this war. So I am very confident that diplomacy will take its way. So this is why I'm not going to waste my time focusing on noise like he said, she said. Look at the picture. Look at the economy. Look at the livelihood. Look at the growth, the employment. And these are, we have not yet reached the brink, so it's still salvageable. And the markets, actually, if you look, as I said before, and the futures prices, I mean, the prices of oil, let's not only, get obsessed by the spot price. The spot price is for immediate delivery. It goes to 110, it comes down, there is a political statement, and so on. The delivery price, the delivery price for the next 6 months is still around $80. Okay. So it's still, there is some kind of underlying sentiment that this conflict, because it will inflict major damages to everyone involved, should really be resolved in a foreseeable future. That's what I believe, and I'm sure we'll get to that. I can't say when, but still everybody knows that we have to get out of this major economic crisis, because now it's not a war, it's an economic warfare. Mm-hmm. Warfare, and belligerent have to, nobody's going to admit that they lost the war or they will withdraw, so we still have statement. But this is the situation. Let's continue to focus on the economic situation, on the inflation, on the market, and see where they evolve.
And see where they can go. Maybe, Mr. Bissaha, some countries are already rethinking their dependence on Gulf energy.
Of course, this is easy said to do. Everybody is thinking about replacing the fossil energy by the new renewable energy, the new green energy. Everybody is saying, I will diversify, but look, it takes time. You cannot overnight say, okay, I'm not going to buy any more from the Gulf. There might still be some action like that, but it's not going to change the big picture. The big picture is the bulk of the oil for Europe, for Asia, for the Gulf countries coming from there, from that place. Now, maybe it's time to make long-term strategies about diversification from fossil oils. Is it going to, this is one of the major topics that will be discussed over the night, but it will take time.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Boussessi, so you're saying, or maybe perhaps they're gonna invest a lot more in renewable energies in the foreseeable future, since now they're having a lot of disruptions. Mr. Bissaha?
Are you asking me a question?
Yeah, I was saying that perhaps they're going to accelerate their investments in terms of renewable energies from now on.
Oh, definitely. In the policies that are being enacted by various countries in the world, they have, first of all, short-term measures in order to stabilize the oil market, to try to mitigate the price, because it is affecting.
Maybe we lost Mr. Bissaha. We lost connection with Mr. Bissaha. We lost connection with Mr. Bissaha. We will get back to you and speak a little bit more about the transition, energy transition, green energy, and renewable energies. Maybe back to peace talks and diplomacy. With you, Hussam, how again do you interpret the contradiction between talking about negotiations while at the same time discussing proposals like a reported US 15-point document demanding a free maritime zone in the Strait of Hormuz? This was a statement that we have seen 2 hours ago, I believe. So does this look like genuine diplomacy or just perhaps diplomacy or pressure dressed as diplomacy negotiation?
So basically, Mariam, we should talk also about the, the strategy followed by the Trump administration since the beginning of its term. They were all the time talking about diplomacy through power. They want to achieve their goals through power, and this is what we're seeing here. We just mentioned that they were talking about peace talks, but at the same time they're deploying military and even like calling the UK, there was this nuclear submarine that is getting closer to the Strait of Hormuz, even though the UK said they're not going to be involved in this war. It's the war of the United States and Israel, but we're seeing a nuclear submarine coming closer. So how can you talk about diplomacy, but at the same time you're literally bringing a whole army that wanted to participate in this war? So when we talk about credibility, Mariam, it's not really about credibility, but it's about it's about how you're gonna have leverage in this war. Because even when we talk about diplomacy and peace talks, the United States all the time wants to, if there are going to be peace talks, the United States and Israel wants to be in a position of power. They don't want to be in a position where they are weak. They don't want even equal peace talks, because since if we see like the balance of power, the United States and Israel, and we put Iran on the other side, of course, they're like the United States is like a superpower, and Iran is a country under sanctions was under sanctions for 50 years. So there's no balance of power here. So if you talked about balance of diplomacy or balance of leverage, the United States all the time wants to have much more leverage, and this is why they are deploying the army there. And another contradiction, Mariam, that we could see here is that the Trump administration and Trump was talking about unconditional surrender of Iran. So they want to end the war with no conditions. And now they're sending these 15 points deals. Like what is happening here exactly? Like what's the Trump administration is doing here? And he said it's just an hour ago, and this is why like it's very confusing, as he told you, especially for us as journalists, because what we need to do, Mariam, and we talked about this multiple times, is that our work is based on taking the official statements and try to analyze them. And of course, we understand that each one of them is trying to sell an idea, sell a story, sell a narrative. But at the end of the day, we want to understand, we want to have cohesion or some kind of a system here, or an idea that the United States is trying to follow. But as me and the professor were talking about, there are multiple contradictions. There's no clear strategy that we could see here. And it's just like keep adjusting and keep changing according to how the war is going. So at the beginning, they did not expect Iran to stay strong until now. They were literally talking about like a direct fall of the regime after the very first strike. But now it's literally the fourth week, and we're seeing that Iran is still retaliating, not only retaliating, but still using some advanced technologies. So just a couple of days ago, they even used a missile that can reach 4,000 kilometers, which is something that nobody knew that's going to happen. So, and what is weird in everything that is going on is that the strategy followed by Iran was clear since the very beginning, even before the war. So before the war, when the Minister of Foreign Affairs started talking, every single time he said, if there is an attack from the United States and Israel, we're going to attack the military bases in the Gulf countries. And literally, this is what happened. Like their strategy is very clear. Unlike the United States, what the United States is saying, they never do what they're saying. But the strategy of Iran is very clear. And until now, and they said also that we still did not use our advanced technologies and advanced missiles.
They're
and
saying
we could see
it's going to
throughout-
be even harder.
Yeah, and we could see throughout the weeks that they're using more advanced missiles and technologies. And it's like it's important to analyze all of this and see the situation. What is it going? That the United States, they wanted like a quick win. They wanted a quick victory. They wanted to collapse of the regime, and they wanted to destroy all the capabilities of Iran. And until now, this did not happen, because at the end of the day, Iran they showed to the world and to the United States that they are capable of retaliating. They are capable of defending themselves, especially that since it's an asymmetric war, it's not only about weapons and it's not only about missiles. It's also about using all the economic cards. And as the professor was talking, he talked about a very important point, which is the Strait of Hormuz, and how the Strait of Hormuz is literally the best, or probably the strongest card that Iran is deploying so far, because it forced other players to be involved. It forced all the world to be involved, because as we know, all economies of the world are interconnected. And once they close the Strait of Hormuz, everybody is affected, and they start putting pressure on all the economies of the world to put pressure on the United States and put pressure on Israel to stop this aggression. And we could see that there are a lot of phone calls of the G7 talking to the administration, to Donald Trump, asking him to end this aggression, because everybody is affected. And these are all parts of this mosaic of a war that is going on so far. So going back, Mariam, to the question of diplomacy, it's so important for the United States to show to the world that they are victorious, especially that the midterm elections is very near. So the United States and Donald Trump and the Trump administration need to find some kind of a victory to sell to the American people, because there's no way that the United States is going to go out of this war showing to the world that they lose, especially that none of the goals that they mentioned before have been achieved. So what are you going to sell to the American people? But if you could see the statements of Donald Trump and the Trump administration, all the time they're saying that they are winning. All the time they're saying that they are victorious and they destroyed Iran.
Very positive speech.
Exactly, and Iran is begging for a peace talk. They're begging for a deal, and I think that in the next few weeks this is going to be the story. And this is like all the Western media. They're going to talk about a victory. They're going to talk about Iran begging for a deal, and Iran is the one defeated. And if they manage to, I think this is the only exit, because it's going to hurt the image of Trump and the image of the Republicans and the image of the Trump administration. So a story to be sold to the American people, that Trump won this war. This is like the main idea that they wanted to sell for the American people.
For the American people. Mr. Sessi, so the US appears to be keeping two tracks open. Diplomacy, they're showing that they're open to negotiate, and at the same time they're keeping their military front, also reinforcement on the other hand, very open. They're deploying thousands of troops today to the region. So does sending more US troops signal deterrence or difficulty controlling escalation? Are they really in control like they're claiming?
I don't think so. If they were in control, we would not have all this false narrative, and we will enhance what Hussein was saying. All what you are getting is, I'm sorry to use the word BS for Mr. Trump. He is in deep trouble and know it. All what he was planning to go walk in the park with Iran come trembling. Why? You have from Iran. Iran is as big as Iraq. Is 95 million. And the global economy, talk about the global economy, but the global economy, the GDP of the world, that region of the world is only 2 to 3%. It's nothing. It's a disturbance because of oil, but the end is insignificant comparatively to the world economy. Now the problem is we have to look for stability. And when you are going to find stability, everything is going to come in place. But for that, at the same time, they have to find a face saving. And I don't think the problem is Trump. Honestly, the problem Trump wants to get out of it. But each and every time is Israel that is coming in the middle and say, no, not yet. Even in June, for example, not what we call the 12 days war. After 4 days, Israel was asking Trump to intervene to make it stop. And Trump said, okay, now we want to, Netanyahu said, you have to stop. Look what they did to you, you didn't expect it. And here is 10 times bigger. And now it began global. You have all the GCC countries that are in war. And what they are going to do. What are you going to do to continue the war? What they are going to do? What is else to destruct? Look what they did to Gaza. They want Iran to become Gaza. It's never going to happen. They go to the central nuclear. It's very dangerous, the proliferation. And these two countries, they didn't sign the treaty, specifically Israel. So now, to answer your question, yes, we have to find a hand to this. And we have to sit down and try to look few books, The Art of War, for example, the Machiavelli, Discourse to the Prince.
The Prince.
Discourse to the Prince, because the hand justifies the means, and the means justify the hand. But we have to watch what is going now. And I cannot continue to just talk about this kind of rhetoric. But my really hope, the kids of Israel, the kids of Iran, the kids of the GCC, we have to stop this madness. And to stop this madness, you have to really raise the awareness for all the world, not only for that part of the world. And I would like, and I'm going to repeat myself, look what they are doing to Ukraine. Why they don't want to do the same for Iran and the Palestinians in Gaza? I can go on and on and on, but you really have to stop to lying to us. We have to make it done. They are never going to do it. And this, the best example now, GCC, I have to find a new daddy. Look, they were talking on Israel, on America, they were not there. They let them down. And this is a message. We have to find new partner. China, India, the BRICS, so on and so forth. Now the sacrosanct stick of America is not a stick anymore. The protection is like a Swiss cheese. There's a lot of hole in it. And we are not going to continue to pay that price. And I was saying also, don't forget, we are different. We think differently. We don't have the same religion. We don't eat the same food. But at the end of the day, we have to nourish our people and we have to find peace for the good of the world.
Mr. Abou-Saha, perhaps speaking about the emergence of new alliances and new economic blocs, is the world witnessing really this today?
No. This is totally nonsense. Actually, there is only one world economy, and you have maybe two major superpowers, the United States and China. I don't see new alliances taking place. If you're talking about the BRICS are a group of countries that has, except for China, they have no strategy together, no common point, no forward policy. So I don't believe in that. Now, coming back to the war we have in our hands, you have two scenarios. First scenario, countries can continue and destroy each other. This will be a destruction of Iran and a lot of destruction in Europe and in the Gulf countries, and a major political and economic price for the United States. Or sit down for the time being, use underground channels and try to come up to a solution, because this is no longer a conflict between Iran and the United States. It's a conflict that is involving every country in the world, because every country in the world is being affected, including in the United States. The political, the economic price which is being paid by the farmers because of higher energy prices, by the consumers, by the average citizen. Inflation is picking up. The gas at the pump went from $270 a gallon to $4, and it keeps rising. So the cost is there. So beside the noise, the strategic view is, I think, there is a point where it is starting now. Diplomacy should take place involving a lot of countries in order to get out of this situation, which is benefiting no one, absolutely no one, the belligerents or the neighboring countries or the other countries.
There is also a news today about Lebanon having expelled Iran's ambassador and declaring him persona non grata. Perhaps, Hussam, politically, how significant is this move?
It is actually very significant, Miriam, because when we talk about diplomacy and international relations, even in the most dangerous of situations and wars, I think it's very, very important to maintain the channels of we need to maintain the channels of communication and diplomacy, because, you know, this is a war, Miriam. And, you know, that Lebanon has been trying for a long time, you know, to disarm the Hezbollah, one of the proxies of Iran. And it's probably one of the most, one of the hardest missions that Lebanon is trying to do so far. And there are multiple analysts and, you know, reports that talks about the fact that Lebanon or the Lebanese people did not really want to be involved in this war. And it's very dangerous and very important to talk about this. And they are, even like we saw Syria, the Syrian leader talking about the fact that it's important to disarm one of the proxies of Lebanon, of Iran, which is Hezbollah in Lebanon. And because there are multiple Lebanese people that really don't want the region to be dragged to this war. So, you know, and they tried to communicate, they tried all channels with the Hezbollah, but nothing worked. So this is why it's the final probably, or it's literally escalating. The relationship between Lebanon and Iran is not going really well. We could see not only this, we could see Qatar and Saudi Arabia, who expelled the military attaché of Iran from Qatar's embassy and the Lebanon and the Saudi Arabia embassy. And it's a very dangerous sign, because we could see that there are multiple third parties. Probably there's a third party here who's trying to involve the Gulf states in this war. And this is why, like, when we see this kind of events, that they're expelling the ambassador, or, you know, in the state of Qatar and Saudi Arabia, they expel the military attaché, not the ambassador. But in the situation of Lebanon, they expelled the ambassador himself, which is a very dangerous sign. And as I said, in international relations, it's not a good sign, because even if there is war, even if there, even if the situation is not really going well, keeping the channels of communications, keeping the diplomacy, keeping peace, keeping talks is important. And most of the time we do this through diplomacy and through the diplomatic missions. And seeing the ambassador being expelled is very dangerous, especially that this is coming after the Lebanese government. You know, they held talks with the Hezbollah, and they said that they don't want Lebanon to be involved, but we could see that the Hezbollah is still participating. There was like a coordinated retaliation attack between Iran and Hezbollah, and they attacked Israel. And I believe that there was a news of the killing of one of the, I believe it's the very first time there are reports that suggest that they killed one Israeli for the very first time since the beginning of the war, and they were killed by the Hezbollah. And for the Lebanese government, it's very dangerous. It's escalation. They don't want this, and this is why, like, expelling the ambassador is just a continuation of what was happening since even before the war. Yeah. So
expelling Iran's ambassador from Lebanon is also another sign of escalation.
It's a sign of escalation. It's a sign also of weakness. Because if you cut the communication, how is going to stop the war? If you don't talk to your enemy, who you are going to talk to? Again and again, and I'm going to reiterate that. The economy, the biggest economy is USA and China. We agree on that. But beside that, look at the rest of the world. This is the hegemony of the West against the country that is not Judeo-Christian. And I'm sorry to say that, and I'm going to enhance it again. It's the hegemony of the West. What The USA have to go to bombard Nigeria. What the USA have to do, Israel have to do to go to Iran? They don't have any border. That's the new hegemony, and I have to say it again, you have to look at the picture and don't be afraid to use the word. The economy, yes, but so what? All the war that you did have, the 1870, the First War, the Second War, it was all about economics. But why? Because they want to share the rest of the world. They want to share the rest of the world. You have this famous, I think it was 1890, Bismarck. They share Africa without consulting the African. The French, they come to the Middle East and they did what you know what you are did. I am an Algerian. I don't want to reiterate myself. Yes, the economy is important, but we build their economy. We build it. And this is why now we go back to the theory of the 3 M's. The first M, they go there, the merchant, they steal the goods and they kill the indigent there. Look what they did in the Central and South America. They killed the 2 civilizations, the Inca and the Aztec. Why? Because they want to take their goods. Then to protect the stealer, the merchant, we send the second M, which is the military. And they do all the genocide over there. And then comes the third one, which is the missionary. Merchant, military, missionary. And this is where we are today. Call it whatever you want. This is in the Islamic world that is bombarding and killing their kids, the innocent men and women. So I can talk about the economies, but here is not economy. They are doing genocide. They want to kill all the people of Iran like they try to do, like they did in Gaza, but it's not going to work. And I'm sorry, I'm going to voice it, and I know a lot of people are going to be displeased. We have us to wake up and look at it. You cannot count on them. Now we have to see our children to grow up and to defend themselves, no matter what. When you take the resilience of the Iranian, they are not afraid of dying. Yes. Trump can say whatever they want, we don't have any leader, they don't want to be leader because they are afraid. They are not afraid, they are sending rain of drones on Israel, they are sending rain of drones on the American base in Kuwait, the American base in Doha, the American base in Saudi Arabia. Now they are testing, Israel is testing some of its own medicine. If you read the Haaretz of today, they say stop the madness. Levi Gordon is one of the journalists, a Jewish journalist, but not Zionist. Now we don't have, again, I'm sorry, Miriam, don't be afraid. Economy is important, but human rights is more than important. I don't want to leave that. I don't want to leave another pseudo-colonization. We have to say it was a genocide. They continue to do it. You are talking about Beirut. Why nobody talks about Beirut? What they are doing in Beirut? What Lebanon people have to do with this war? Why? They want to put a buffer zone? How they are going to do it? I'm sorry to be so blunt in my statement, but this is what it is. This is a new crisis, and you have to stop it and call it what it is. The economy, yes, but it's not the issue here. As I said, the GDP of the GCC and that part of the world, I can ask Dr. Besaha, maybe, Doctor, if you want to go a little bit about it, is only 3%. Where is the 97%? Please, Dr. Besaha, if you can help us on this one.
Mr. Besaha, perhaps a comment on this point.
What's the question exactly?
Mr. Sese was discussing that the GCC's GDP is only of 3%, and he wanted more clarification on perhaps this point.
I don't know. I don't have the exact number of the. I know that the world GDP is $125,000 billion. The GCC could be around something like 15 to 20%. Still, the problem is not the GDP size. The problem is the attractiveness of the country. Those countries had some kind of attractiveness, some soft power. And the current war has really damaged their infrastructure, has damaged their soft power, and it will take them years to recover and regain. So this is one of the costs of this war, and as much as also the destruction of Iran also, is one cost, the loss of the human human suffering, the loss of human lives also. So this war is becoming quite really a huge burden and is extracting a huge toll on the whole world, starting, of course, with the Middle East. In the Middle East, you have Lebanon, who is suffering, you have Palestine, you have now in the Gulf countries, Iran. The bombardments are doing a lot of damages to human life and to infrastructure. So this is why I think the red line is here, despite the rhetoric of everyone involved. There is a red line here. Are we going to continue in this kind of a disastrous situation? I don't think so. I think some heads needs to remain cool. Diplomacy now is in gear. Diplomacy takes time to start, takes time to reach result, but I believe in diplomacy for a return to peace in the Middle East and in the world. Mm-hmm. That's the only way to solve this problem, because it's not a political problem anymore. It's a major economic problem. So and the economy makes people think twice. You will see in terms of inflation in the world, of decline in activity, in the rise of poverty, in of course, all the economic wars that are associated to any war that is as bad as this one. I believe in diplomacy, and I'm sure in diplomacy we'll get out of, because everybody now is involved. Europe is involved, Asia is involved. Latin America is involved, the Middle East is involved. We have to find a way out and to stop this nonsense.
We have to find a way out. And speaking about all of the repercussions and all of the dead and damages that have been done to the region, we have to mention Lebanon, and very specifically South Lebanon. We've seen now the first, you talked about the first Israeli death from Lebanese, but speaking about the Lebanese deaths, Hussam, there are hundreds of them, and human suffering is still there. Now, we were speaking about diplomacy. How perhaps can it happen for all of this bloodshed to stop?
So, Mariam, like we've been talking about it since the beginning of the show, is that, you know, in wars, the first victims are civilians. And this is what we're seeing in Lebanon. Of course, there was one Israeli who's been killed. We should emphasize on the fact that these are the numbers of the Israeli side, mm-hmm. which are, you know, there's no credibility here because we don't really know. We couldn't
verify the news.
Yeah, of course. You know, we're just taking the statement from them. But, you know, there are multiple pictures or footage. If we check the footage, we could see that there's a lot of destruction in Israel. And saying that there's only one Israeli who was killed, like for the very first time since the beginning of the war, it's something that we journalists should question. But on the other side, we're seeing Lebanon suffering, not only hundreds of people being killed, but also like thousands of people displaced, Mariam, because, you know, before each attack, there must be, you know, evacuation of the places under the pretext that the Zionist entity is attacking Hezbollah, positions. Mm-hmm. And this is why, like, we could see that there are thousands of people who have been displaced from their homes and they have nowhere to go because it's a war zone.
One other point, Hussam, maybe, is that Israel's government has reportedly instructed its forces to establish a so-called security zone in southern Lebanon, extending it to the southern Litani river just today.
Exactly, and here, Mariam, we talk about it's part of what they are labeling as the Great Israel, mm-hmm. because we are seeing that as the war is going all the time, you know, the Zionist entity is using these pretexts to call, you know, they call it a buffer zone or
security
a security zone, but they're just expanding their borders.
Yes,
and they're literally taking parts of Lebanon. And as you might know, Mariam, the Great Israel project is literally going to take, parts of all the neighboring countries, including all the nations that are neighboring the Zionist entity, which is a huge problem. And there are multiple diplomats that actually condemned this kind of, when you talk about another sovereign nation, and you mention explicitly that you're going to take some of the borders or some of the lands of other nations, like, what are you expecting from other nations? Because all the time, the Zionists and they're playing the victim, that they are the victims. But if you go and talk about a great Israel, and we've seen like the ambassador of the United States in Israel, like in a recent interview with Tucker Carlson, I think the professor have seen it. He talked literally about like the great Israel, and he talks about the right of Israel of gaining all these lands.
As if it was natural.
Of course, as if it was a natural right. And then they say that they're the victims. So going back, Mariam, to what is going on currently in Lebanon, it's literally a disaster, and it's linked to expelling the ambassador of Iran, because the Lebanese people now are suffering. And in Lebanon there was before some kind of a balance between the state of Lebanon and the proxy of Iran, which is Hezbollah. There was some kind of a balance that Arab nations are having relations with the Lebanese state, but expelling the ambassador now, we're seeing that it's some kind of a message that Lebanon is no longer gonna it's not gonna tolerate what is happening. Like we cannot
being dragged to a war it didn't start.
Into the war. Also, like they cannot tolerate an external entity having control over an internal entity, or having control over a political party. So like this is what's going on so far. And as we've been talking, Mariam, this is very sad, because Lebanese people know they have nowhere to go.
Yes.
And even if we talked about humanitarian aid, so hard nowadays to receive humanitarian aids with everything that is going on in the world. We're talking about what is happening in Sudan. Sudanese people now are suffering because of this. They are not receiving humanitarian aid. And we're talking about Gaza. We're talking about multiple places in the world. We're talking about all these straits, being closed. So it's very hard for even Lebanese people to receive humanitarian aid. So it is a disaster. It is because of this war. Lebanese people are suffering, and it's something that we should stop. Should stop.
It is something that it should stop. Maybe we should mention the number. 1 million people fled their homes in Lebanon, and there are 130,000 internally displaced, including about 46,000 children in collective shelters across the country. We've seen since the beginning of the war that 1,270 people have died, more than 2,966 injured. This should stop, Mr. Sassi, perhaps.
I don't know how to answer the question. You should not ever begin with. It was an aggression. And again, since you talk about Israel, and you have to talk about Israel, they are the one who spoil all the country. As I said before, I'm going to repeat it, Trump and Iran was negotiating. And Israel come and say, no, don't negotiate, go. Bombard them, and they stop them. They stop Iran in the back. You talk about the thousands of people displaced in Lebanon. You have 3 million people displaced in Iran. But they are not going to go anywhere. They are going to stay there. We have to stop the war. And when you talk about economics, again, I would like to say, well, what are the parameters to make an analysis on the economy of Israel and the rest of the GCC? Israel, I am an American. It cost me $2 billion a day. And they get so far something like 66 billion. Who are paying for it? America. If it was not America, the economy of Israel would be in trouble, big trouble. When you have 100,000 of their kids, they call them to go back to defend the border of Lebanon. They are not in the economical system of the country. So what are the parameters here to judge the economy good or bad? When you have some, like the United States, that cost me as an American $12 for each and every Israeli. And this is the number of the World Bank. It's not my number, I didn't take it from my mind. And again, to stop this is very easy. Just America have to say no, and everybody will be fine. Everything will be fine. The F-35, the F-16, the Tomahawk. Who's going to pay for? Who's paying for that? If America tomorrow say stop the madness, it will stop right away. No, we have a warmonger which is Netanyahu, and you have Trump who want to be the new, how can I say, I'm not going to say Jules Caesar, but you know, the new hero. I compare him, not Caesar, it's too good, I compare him to Nero, who burned Rome. And this is where we are now. Yes, what I'm saying is not a diplomatic sentence. I believe in diplomacy, but with who? Share the diplomacy. What is diplomacy between France and Europe and America, even if they have some problem, to go and bombard a country that did nothing to the one who are bombarded them? What kind of diplomacy is that? I cannot believe in that kind of diplomacy. It's not working. As I said before, the United Nations, the Security Council, they have plenty of resolution for Israel to stop the madness. None of them was good. Why? Because of America. And I said, and I say it again for the people who didn't hear me the first time, France, Russia, United States, England, Russia and China, 4 of them, they never cease to have war among themselves, except China. All the other one, England and France had during centuries, America the slavery. So now you are going to teach me about diplomacy and peace and trust in you. I don't trust them, because the fact I'm very factual. Where is the peace? Why you are go to the tribunal, the ICC court, and who do you see there? The African dictatorship, the dictator. Why you don't call Bush? Why you don't call Obama? Bush, son and father. Why you don't call Obama? Why you don't call Clinton? Why you don't thank this Mr. Trump who is doing all this chaotic thing in the world? Yes, it's harsh what I'm saying, but I'm sick and tired of going to try to hide the forest with the tree. No, wake up and smell the coffee. Tell the truth. Why they are doing this? What purpose? The purpose is not economy. It's to take the wealth of these people. This is what it is.
Thank you very much for these insights, Mr. Sassi. I'm afraid we're running out of time.
I'm sorry.
Thank you very much, Hussam Barkan, also for your participation in our program, and also Mr. Sassi. Always delighted to have you in our programs. Thank you very much. Mr. Bissaha.
One point I would like to make before you close the show. Actually, GDP of the GCC countries is 2% of world GDP. Yeah, very briefly, it's 2% of world GDP. It's very small in terms of share of GDP. However, it is 30% of the world energy. So the GCC represents a major source of macroeconomic stability or macroeconomic instability. This is the sense where it is an extremely important set of countries and regions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bissaha, for your insights, and thank you, dear viewers, for your kind attention.